the thing that I would really give the Labour Party credit for, well, partly it's for purging that sort of very socialist Corbynite element from the party, but that as a prelude to basically making growth one of their main focuses and one of their main priorities.
Tom, what do you think the implications are going to be for Labour's policy agenda from the last 24 hours? I mean, it seemed like Labour was already intending this kind of small target strategy, not wanting to overpromise and therefore under-deliver. At the same time, though, they've won a big majority. Will they use that perhaps, something that we talk about a lot, doing planning reform or taking another look at the NHS? Will they be, quietly radical in some ways, despite perhaps being, you would think they would hopefully be aware that they have a limited mandate to be radical in some other ways?
Yeah, I think the thing that I would really give the Labour Party credit for, well, partly it's for purging that sort of very socialist Corbynite element from the party, but that as a prelude to basically making growth one of their main focuses and one of their main priorities, and talking, in quite robust terms about needing to get the economy growing before they could achieve any of their other sort of social justice objectives. But of course, that's difficult. If it was easy, every government would do it. And there are trade-offs and there are political sacrifices you have to be willing to make. So I think if you look at the big things that maybe we hope Labour could do, it all comes down to getting Britain building and try to liberalise the planning system, get us more housing and more factories and more labs and more roads and everything else, and energy infrastructure for that matter as well is going to be very important. But that's easy to talk about in opposition. We've seen repeatedly in recent British history, or even not that recent, that it's quite hard to deliver in practice. And I think the point that Mike makes, that this wasn't as explicit as it could have been, but because this was, in a sense, an easy election campaign for Labour, they weren't forced to go out there and really make the case for the kind of policies they wanted to implement. They were trying to present a small target. They were trying to play it safe and win by default. And that's pretty much what has happened. So you do wonder, when you have that many MPs, and some of them have quite slim majorities, how committed are they going to be to the tough choices that need to be made? And so there's partly a political problem, but I also do worry on some of this housing stuff and planning stuff generally, that Labour haven't really grasped, and no one has really grasped actually what needs to be done. So it's fine to talk about new towns, right? It's going to be extremely difficult to get a new town built in the next 5 years, let alone the next 10 years, even if you have a following wind on the planning system.
And even if new towns are the solution, which they...
Even if they're solution, which they probably aren't, what you really need is kind of densification in London. You need urban extensions to places that really need to grow, like Oxford and Cambridge. So I think there's a danger they sort of pursue the wrong things, they crumble at the opposition to them. And we have, in a sense, a continuation of this kind of lackluster, going nowhere kind of government that we've had for the last few years. And the sense that Keir Starmer isn't entering Downing Street with that huge wave of kind of Blairite enthusiasm behind him maybe makes that an even more real prospect.